Welcome back. Stephen Carlton, First Vice President Jenny Montgomery Scott with our weekly look at finance.
Thanks, David. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. We're going to talk a little bit about the state budget. We'll get to that in just a moment. We're also going to talk a little bit about the economy when it comes to the minimum wage, what's going on Wall Street. But let's start at the top. Let's go to Cyprus. We were covering this last week. When we were discussing Cyprus last week, no deal had been made. Since last time, a deal has now been made. And today, the banks reopened after being shut for quite some time.
Yeah, it was a week. People were very, very nervous. We're in uncharted territory. We've gone through Ireland and Greece and all the debt and bond buybacks and everything else. But Cyprus felt very, very different because now we were talking about taking depositors' money. And that made a lot of people nervous across all of Europe and people nervous even over here. And what we saw over the weekend was they came up with a solution. They're only going to take money from people 100,000 or more, larger deposits. But I think there's a little bit of paralysis, a little bit of shock to the average Cypriot that's there right now.
Yeah, I mean, we commented on this one in our pre-production for this segment. When you look at pictures of people of Cyprus, they're not angry. The Cypriots are not angry yet.
Right.
I think they're going to get to that point, but they're more just shell-shocked. Do you think, when you think about your daily life, the fact that you can't access your own money, how are you going to buy groceries? How are you going to do X, Y, and Z? So I think people were just like, wow, this actually happened. As opposed to perhaps the Greeks and the Spaniards who saw their financial crisis kind of coming. The anger was building in those countries. As you saw with the protests on the street, the Cypriots were just kind of shell-shocked.
Well, there's this idea that the solution has been, they've come up with a solution and solved now, but I would suggest it's quite the opposite. I would suggest that this solution is going to get worse. It's going to spiral down.
The European Union thinks what they've done in Cyprus is actually working.
Well, they came up with this number and saying if they raise this much money, everything will be fine. But the problem is the economy is going to slow down because it's so dependent on finance. It's so dependent on the banking system. As the economy slows down, the taxation slows down. As taxation gets lower, the unemployment gets worse. And so there's this ripple effect. We've seen it happen in Italy and Spain and Greece and Portugal. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. But what makes everybody nervous is Brussels now has a new rule book on how to save banks. And the solution is to take depositors' money. And that makes Europeans, that makes most people in the world nervous because...
Yeah, forget Europeans. I think that should make everybody angry.
Absolutely.
If, you put your money in a bank and then all of a sudden there's a new rule book that says, hey, we're going to take a chunk of your cash that you worked really hard to earn.
Exactly.
Yeah, and obviously, a lot of people were trying to take money out of the banks. You're going to get to a time where people were just stuffing it in their mattresses, and you couldn't do that. But perhaps that will happen now. People will be more apt to keep the money at home.
Yes, you're right. People are going to look at bank strength now. It's going to be very important to watch the health of the banks. And certain economies, if they get worse, people are more apt to panic and to pull money out. So people are looking at Italy, they're looking at Spain, they're looking at Greece now to see does this ripple through the other places. Thankfully in the U.S. we don't appear to have some of the problems that they have to the degree that they have. But there's still concern over here. A lot of people in the last week have been coming up saying, do you think this is going to happen here in the States? It's possible, but it's a lot less likely than it is over there.
Let's move on to the minimum wage, a tale of two economies. The problem for a lot of people is they just don't have any money. We're looking at the stock markets closing the quarter out in just record territory. Things are great if you're in the upper brackets of the economic earners in this country. You're bathing in dollar bills, $100 bills, and folks on the other end are just trying to count a couple of dollars and see if they've got enough in their wallet to put dinner on the table.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that this country is a tale of two economies. Like you said, the S&P 500 at a 66-month high. We finally got back to where we were in 2007. But that halo effect of the wealth of the stock market that's been created in the last couple of years, it's not trickling down quickly enough for the 47 million people on food stamps. Like you're talking this minimum wage. The problem is like you said, most of these people in this situation are not seeing a benefit as of yet.
So so first of all, the stat that we're talking about, 70% surge in food stamps since 2008. We're tying that into the fact that we talked about the minimum wage last week. The New York State has a plan in place, going to raise the minimum wage through 2016 to a whopping $9. We crunched some numbers for you. Here's the minimum wage as it currently stands, $7.25 for minimum wage. We're doing this math 30-hour week, right? I think most people work a 30-hour week because companies don't want to pay.
Shorter hours, less cost for benefits and stuff like that. You're right.
Bring home a month before taxes, $870. That's laughable that somebody could live off that.
But that's the story of a lot of Americans, and those are the silent majority that are out there that are not having huge stock accounts, that don't have a whole lot of money in savings and stuff like that. And that's the concern here in New York. That's why we've talked about the livable wage. That's why we've talked about the need for higher minimum wage, because there's a lot of single parents, there's a lot of people that, you know, are in this situation, and it's tough, it's tight.
Well, wait a minute, because the news gets better. Our lawmakers decided they're going to raise our minimum wage. So everything's going to be all right if you're on a minimum wage. By 2016, you're going to be making $9 an hour for a minimum wage. So we crunched the numbers. You and I, we got the calculator out. Well, I did. You did it all in your head. 30-hour week. You're bringing home before taxes $1,140 a month. So our lawmakers got together, decided they're going to raise the minimum wage through 2016. It's going to go, it's staggered over the year. It's going to be $9 an hour by the time you get to 2016. You still can't live off that. And if you put in the rate of inflation into that equation,
there's no doubt that there are challenges here, and the one encouraging thing I'm taking away from this is that we're finally getting some traction. You know, the Governor Cuomo, the New York, they're starting to have some movement here, but the work's not done. You know, there's no doubt about it. There's a lot of people in New York, there's a lot of people in our communities that want to work, want to be able to take care of their families, and it's harder than it's ever been.
Yeah, and I think that the desire is for people to work as hard as they can to put dinner on the table, but it seems like the odds are against them.
Well, I was talking to somebody at a coffee shop here in Saratoga, and they had 3 jobs.
Yeah.
And they're not the exception. There's a lot of young people. There are people, you know, in the 20, 30-year-old bracket and older that are carrying 2, 3 jobs, and so it's tough, no doubt about it.
Well, you know, let's finish on something that'll just make your blood boil even more. We're on a roll tonight.
Yes.
After a hard day at work, you may want to go home and watch a little Jay Leno, or as it will become, Jimmy Fallon on the NBC network, talk that the Tonight Show will come to NBC in New York City. I'm a Letterman fan, by the way, so you know, this makes me even angrier. In the state budget, there is a tax credit to bring production of TV shows that have been out of our state for, I think it's 6 seasons, tax credit to attract them back to New York State.
It is counterintuitive, right? I mean, your initial reaction is to go, oh my goodness. But think about the trickle-down effect with some of this stuff. If I can put a silver lining on this, I'm going to stretch a little bit.
Well, and before we do, let's set it up. The tax credits for they're calling it the Tonight Show tax, the Jimmy Fallon tax, because the Tonight Show may come back here. So there's a lot of talk that lawmakers did this specifically for the Tonight Show. The governor's office has denied that, but
wisely.
It just seems like all these things are in a line. So you give us the silver lining on this one.
Well, you know, you see the government cuts, you see all those things, but I remember a time in American history where we had the trickle-down effect. You know, we look at during the Clinton era in the 90s where the stock market took off, and one of the things that I'm hoping and looking for, you know, in the market is to see this economy grow. And then wages will start to catch up, benefits will start to catch up as we create and as companies expand and grow. It'll happen. But we're digging our way out of a pretty deep hole right now.
Yeah.
But I do see a lot of encouraging signs. The unemployment numbers have been getting better. Housing's getting better. You know, there's improvements across the board. Are we out of the woods yet? But no. But I do see encouraging signs. And you can't deny the fact that things are improving in a lot of ways.
All right, I misspoke. It was 5 seasons outside of the state. To come back. You know, somehow I think New York's great enough that the Tonight Show will come without that tax credit. But that's just me thinking that, you know, we already have Fallon in New York and we have Letterman in New York.
Do we need another?
Well, perhaps. We're available.
Yes, call us.
Yeah, yes. I like it. Story and Carlton.
Yes, it has a ring to it. I like it.
Carlton and Story?
Carlton Story's a little better, but
right.
Yeah, that's just me.
Hey, I'm easy. Whatever you want to do, bro.
Fabulous. I'm all game. So yeah, watch for us.
Watch for us this fall on Look TV. Stephen Carlton, First Vice President. Janie Montgomery, as always, thank you for helping us understand what's going on in the world of finance.
Pleasure. Always good to be here.
All right, thank you, sir. And of course, you can see this segment, all our segments. Also, if you want to hire us, head to looktvonline.com. We're available right there.